Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of NRN, joined by my colleague, executive editor Alicia Kelso. Alicia, I'm a little frazzled because I feel like I got thrown in on the deep end here. It was kind of a crazy week going on in the restaurant industry.
Do you think I feel bad for you?
No, I was on the beach in Maine enjoying myself as much as I can when you have 3 children who vacation with you. But at least I didn't look at my email. That was the goal. Did I arrive to several hundred emails waiting for me? Yes. But was it worth getting a vacation in? Yes. It just so happens that it was one of the busiest weeks for restaurants in a long, long time, as you have just reminded me, and I'm already overwhelmed, but we've got to unpack it. Alicia, I know that, okay, so you told me 18 restaurant companies reported quarterly earnings this past week. And it was a real mixed bag. You had some good, you had some bad, and then you had some so-so. Not so many so-so. Mostly either people were really good or, what was the phrase you used, Alicia?
I don't want to repeat that. I'll have to get censored.
They went boom boom in the bed, I believe. There's another way to say that. There was some bad. There was some bad news. Yeah. Should we start with the good though? Let's get ourselves happy and optimistic about things, because it's easy to read into this and say, oh no, something's happening here. And that could be restaurant industry. Some trends, Alicia, that you have pointed out, and we'll kind of get into in a second, but there was some good news for some companies. What were some of the highlights? Who are some of the top performers out of this quarter?
I think if we look at last week, which was an ass kicker, and I don't know if I'll be censored for that one, but it was, with the 18-ish, I think I'm missing 1 or 2 really small public companies in there too. So there's probably more. We have to start with McDonald's. It's the industry bellwether. All kind of eyes on McDonald's. They are coming off 2 rare back-to-back negative quarters in Q4, which was marred by their food safety crisis in October. In Q1, which was just a little bit of a issue lingering from that, but also other issues in Q1, namely the continued pullback of low-income consumers for with whom the chain over-indexes. McDonald's reported plus 2.5%. So it looks like they are starting to gain some traction in a lot of the work that they have been doing to turn those negative sales and negative traffic trends around in Q4 and Q1. Traffic still seems a little bit muted at the company, however, especially in breakfast. But the company got a nice tailwind from some of the heavier promotional work that it's been doing. We saw the launch of the McCrispy strips in Q2. The Minecraft meal promotion was a wild success, and those 2 things have sort of set a good pace with Q3, which really is looking like the innovation wheel has ramped up even more, of course, with the snack wraps leading that conversation. McDonald's also really flaunted the tech work that it's been doing. First announced in Q1 2023, it's making progress on a lot of that work. I thought that was really interesting because McDonald's reported a day after Yum Brands reported. Yum Brands also, touted its tech work that it's doing. So we've got the two of the biggest restaurant companies in the world sort of peacocking their feathers on all the tech investments that they're making. And I thought that was an interesting narrative here. The one big takeaway about McDonald's that I would caution, that 2.5% positive is obviously welcome news after back-to-back negative quarters. But McDonald's, those executives are not optimistic about the rest of the year. It's not smooth sailing just because they turn things around.
Yeah.
They are warning of slow consumers. They are not the only company doing so. I don't know what that means. I think you and I talked about Q1. The word of Q1 was uncertainty. I would
Yeah.
say the word so far of Q2 is choppiness. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, one thing I did pay attention to was the news while I was out. And of course, all over last week was, hey, tariffs, 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 tariffs. Again, we're back to talking about tariffs. I am fresh from another CEO interview. I'll keep under wraps for the time being. But for those who are watching can tell, I am also in another hotel room, despite having just gotten back from vacation. But the CEO I was with brought up tariffs as being a huge headwind. I mean, we're back to, oh, yeah, that's right. This is a reality because it was will they, won't they for a long time there. Well, they will. It is here. It's happening. And that's a huge headwind for restaurant companies. But as I know, also, Alicia, for McDonald's must be looking at beef prices have become a real issue. And I know you mentioned Texas Roadhouse. Roadhouse once again reported positive sales, but they're pretty worried about that, aren't they?
I think this is their 12th year of positive traffic as well, which is remarkable. Sales up 5.8%. Of note, I tried to take my kid to Texas Roadhouse for lunch yesterday for his birthday, and we even put our name on their waitlist program, and the line was way too daunting for
Wow.
him and for us, actually. It's just remarkable how much volume this company does.
Good problem.
And they had a no doubt. The call unfortunately was a bit marred by the conversation about beef prices. We're at historic highs here, both because we've got a demand issue. We talk about protein and all the protein launches on menus, and because of a supply issue. So, I don't want to take away from Texas Roadhouse's insane consistency. It is really a case study for this industry, but the conversations around beef as it applies to companies like Texas Roadhouse and McDonald's and, Outback and so on and so forth, I think will be a little bit louder in the coming months as beef inflation seems to be a relentless problem, for the near term. So,
yeah. Well, another curious part of this, talking about Texas Roadhouse, I mean, and it's curious because of, again, the state of things with the economy and with the consumer, the uncertainty, but it almost seems like some full service brands did better than limited service brands. And if you look at BJ's doing well, and one that you're very, very excited about, Applebee's came in hot in the last quarter, doing very, very well. We love to champion all of these brands. We want to see everybody succeed. It's nice to see Applebee's come back. It's been a couple of years since they had a positive quarter.
It's been a long time. And Applebee's, of note, of course, we don't have favorites here, but Applebee's is my beat. We want all of these companies to succeed. And I am more familiar with Applebee's because it is my beat than some others. They were up 4.9%. This is Applebee's first positive quarter since the first quarter of 2023. And so that was exciting. I mean, of course everybody loves a comeback story. So Applebee's is finding a lot of traction we talked last year, toward the end of last year, second half of last year, where they had to adjust their value strategy. The value strategy that they put out in the middle of 2024, while everyone else was putting out a value strategy, was not resonating. And so Applebee's made a really abrupt adjustment to that and started focusing on that holistic value that customers go to full service, places for. So what they found the most success with is their signature 2 for $25 menu. And what they're doing to sort of zhuzh that up a little bit is they're introducing new entrees as a part of that signature 2 for $25 menu every quarter. And it has worked, up 4.9%. Undeniably, that has worked. They are also promoting off premises more, and that has worked as well. That is enticing new customers to come in. So there's obviously, Applebee's core customers that come in, for their Dollaritas and so forth in restaurant, but off prem, and the investments that they've made there to promote that on their off prem channels have really started gaining traction and finding new customers, which is a gold mine right now because it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And they've also made a lot of progress. They moved their social media team in-house about 3 months ago, and they have started really ramping up their presence on social media. This sounds really simple, but it's not, and it's hard to do. And I ran social media before this job and I didn't love it. And, just keeping a pulse on that culture and those real-time conversations that are happening about the brand across channels, and having the ability to respond in real time with your in-house social media has helped the company really kind of inject itself a little bit more relevantly in pop culture and culture and what's happening right now. And I did have a conversation with CEO John Payton, and he said that this has had a tremendous amount of success so far. It's early days, but triple digit engagement increases across every platform.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's impressive. And it's hard to read into this too much in the casual dining versus limited service dining. At the end of the day, customers want a great experience. They want to feel like they have trust with the brands that they're visiting. And so something that seems sort of small and like, oh, why weren't they already doing this? But that even a social media strategy could perhaps help to influence customers to be like, oh, I forgot that Applebee's used to be one of my favorites. Like that messaging resonates with me more than whatever they were trying to do over here. Now, speaking of that, we have an interesting case study, as you told me, Alicia, about some of the brands taking certain strategies and it work and seeing how they worked for them, specifically innovation and innovating around, the core product versus innovating around not the core product. And the two brands here I know that you mentioned were Wendy's and Papa John's. And it was sort of a tale of two chains. And on the good side, Papa John's, on the bad side, Wendy's. Tell me more about this. What can we read from the performance of those two companies?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it's a tricky balance, right? And I think 2024 was a record year for LTOs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason the industry is in that environment right now. And it's because we have a traffic problem, right? So sexy new products, new news, at least puts those brands top of mind and ignites that interest to come in or potentially come in. That top of mind awareness we've talked about at length is critical in this environment where consumers simply don't have enough to spend on restaurants as much as they used to. And so innovation, how do you approach innovation? Well, what Papa John's had a positive quarter. In Q1, they were up 1%. This was their first positive quarter since Q4 of 2023. And that's great news, right?
Yeah.
And so what Papa John's did was sort of cut out those distractions from the menu. Less focus on sort of sides and sandwiches, way more focus on Papa John's pizza. So that was how the company sort of got its groove back, was just, getting rid of those menu distractions and focusing on its core equity of pizza. Conversely, Wendy's did not have a great quarter. Unfortunately, they were down. They were at negative 3.6% on the quarter. And, their CEO, Kirk Tanner, mentioned they simply got too carried away on promotions. There was too much noise coming out. They had a Takis meal, for example, in the middle of Q2, and it just didn't do as well as they thought. And that was interesting news. That was an interesting partnership. I thought it was a pretty big risk to take. I knew my kid was excited because he loves Takis, but it just didn't resonate the way they wanted to. And this is a good example of going too overboard on innovation.
Yeah.
Marketers have to find that balance. It's not easy to do because customers want new products now. They want interesting, spicy, saucy.
Yeah.
They want everything right now. But you cannot do that at the risk of your core menu and get too carried away there.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we've talked for a long time about the benefits of partnerships and of co-branding a product. And Wendy's itself has had success with that when it did its Thin Mints Frosty earlier this year. It drummed up a lot of interest because here were two strong brands coming together. You would think with the Takis promotion, that was another opportunity to have two strong brands coming together and leverage each other's audience. But perhaps it just didn't quite resonate in the way they expected. I will say, your son loves Takis. I don't think my kids know what Takis are. I don't know why. It just hasn't entered our household yet. But maybe there was just a difference in audience or something. I don't know. It's not always going to work. Which is so frustrating about the restaurant industry because there's no surefire thing here. That could have worked in another world, and a lot of brand partnerships do. But what you can control is the pace. And I think that's the point here that you're making, Alicia, which is that you can't just go boom, 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 because you're confusing the guest. They need something to really chew on physically and metaphorically, where they need something to really, think about and take some time to be like, I want to go try that. I've seen that everywhere now. I need to go see what that's like. And you can't then immediately be like, okay, now over here, now over here. There are thousands of inputs into all of our brains every single day. And to get their attention, you really need to remind them over and over and over of the thing you want their attention on. So yeah, if you do too many distractions, too much noise, to your point, Alicia, that is not a good thing. So Wendy's, though, not the only company that did not do so hot. There were a few others that were surprisingly negative. Sweetgreen, that one really caught me off guard. They'd had some pretty good news of late, but this one was pretty bad. What should we learn about Sweetgreen and maybe the overall fast casual industry from them?
I was a little shocked by this. They were down over 10% on traffic at Sweetgreen. Wow. Same store sales down negative. They were negative 7.6. Excuse me. They're cutting about 10% of their headquarters. Speaking of that innovation balance, so those Ripple fries that Sweetgreen launched several months ago, they were pretty popular, and Sweetgreen is now cutting them from the menu, calling them a distraction.
Oh, interesting.
And so is that part of this broader conversation of getting back, to, I don't know, the basics. I don't know what's happening here. With Sweetgreen, I think there's another interesting thing at play, and it's a premium salad brand that over indexes in urban markets.
Yeah.
And that's a tough spot to be, especially right now. And I don't think it's rocket science to figure that out. As we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, several brands warned of continuous, consumer pressures and even worsening consumer sentiment expected, for the second half of this year. That was not the sentiment from public restaurant brands at the end of Q1.
Yeah.
Q1 was not a strong quarter, largely because of weather and uncertainty. But a lot of these companies reported sequential improvement and strength coming out of the gate in Q2. And now we're dealing with more choppiness. And Q2, was just kind of a weird mixed bag. But like I said, I think the concern here is these warning signs from these companies saying, including McDonald's, again, going back to that bellwether, the company where I think it was 87% of Americans visit McDonald's. Mm-hmm. No company has a stronger pulse on the consumer than McDonald's. And when they're saying, hey, caution ahead, that is going to be, I'm going to heed that warning a little bit. And so Sweetgreen that has $13, $15, $18 salads, that's a precarious place to be when the broader environment is pulling it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because, we've talked a number of times this year about the health movement and how it seemed like there were indicators that healthy was becoming another force. And it's not to say that, every health-oriented brand's going to do well because of that. But I feel like that's kind of sputtered. That narrative that healthy's back and is going to grow. People, I think, care more. I'm one of them, by the way, about price over health. I'm more conscious. The first thing I'm looking at is the price of the thing compared to the calorie count of the thing. Because at the end of the day, the inflation is just, and I have to take one moment here, Alicia, because it's come up. And I have to say, holy cow, seafood is expensive because I ate a lot of it last week in Maine. And oh my good golly, did I spend a lot of money on food? And it blew my mind. And I have to say, there was one spot in particular. It was a really cool experience. It was outdoors. There was this big outdoor sort of patio area, live music, outdoor bar, walk-up window. And remember that, because this is not a fancy table service place. And for food for myself and my wife and 3 children, $125. And we got, fish sandwiches. Now, yes, seafood tends to skew more expensive. And yes, we were in a touristy part of Maine, but it just was also another reminder of holy cow, food is so expensive. And it's hard for a family. I'm sure you've had this experience. I spent all that on, food on my family, and my kids barely touched it. So then I'm just like, you can't win almost, right? So anyway, point being,
like that.
it is. I mean, at least the food is tasty. I'll give them that. But yeah, it's like people are. I mean, look, Americans all over are getting pinched on all sides, and it's getting worse. And the tariffs threaten to make it worse. So you do wonder, health or no health. You just wonder if people are just like, once again, like, I can't keep doing this with restaurants.
It's the narrative that comes up far more frequently than any other narrative when we are reporting on brand performance. We have not touched yet on Yum Brands, by the way, if I may. So KFC was down 5%. They were making progress at the end of Q4 into Q1. By progress, I mean Q1 was -3. That was still 6 straight quarters of negative sales. When we post about KFC, for example, and their comeback plan that was announced in July, everybody says the same thing. It's gotten too expensive. I don't know if that has implications for this -5%. I know they're moving in the wrong direction, right? Same with our conversations that we have about Starbucks pretty much every day.
Yeah.
All this entire conversation around cost it's drowning out everything else that the restaurant industry is trying to do. And that's unfortunate, because if people are, if this company over here is raising their prices by X, everybody's going to assume everything else is too expensive to eat out. And I think that's kind of where we've gotten ourselves, in the industry, is the price fatigue started maybe here, expanded to there. And don't get me wrong, operators have to take price.
Yeah.
Their cost input prices are completely unmanageable right now. And to your point, they're not getting better. This was a narrative with the Texas Roadhouse has always intentionally tried to underprice. And they're running out of options here, and they're still going to keep the pricing pretty conservative compared to many of their peers. But it's like they're all holding back this dam, and the dam is really looking like it's going to break even faster, when we thought we were kind of over this hump. We thought we were over the egg price situation. Now we've got to worry about beef prices. We thought, construction prices got better. Now we've got to deal with tariffs, hindering that equipment, and so on and so forth. And, of course, labor is higher too. Right. So I just think that the restaurant industry is working against an increasingly resistant narrative based on pricing with many of these brands.
Yeah. All right, Alicia, what other trends do you see? Any other through lines from all of these companies that reported?
Well, if I can just jump on that, because I'm saying things and things are coming to my head. That's also, I think, a reason Taco Bell has been pretty insulated in this environment. Up again, another positive quarter of +4%. When Yum Brands reported, David Gibbs, that was his last earnings call as CEO, by the way, mentioned that there is a gap in value perception at its two flagship brands, KFC and Pizza Hut. That's not the case at Taco Bell. And so there you have it. And that was not, he wasn't the only one that said that. We've got a little bit of a value problem. Chipotle said that, and so that's something I think we keep an eye on. Every brand is different. And I think that's what's challenging, is because this industry is so used to watching other brands and seeing where people go and trying to pull pages from that. But that just can't be the way it is anymore. It's wildly different. I think we would be remiss, of course, not to call out two of the biggest, maybe perhaps biggest pro and or good and bad, if you will. Dutch Bros up 6.1%. Investors like that. Their stock was up 20%. Their traffic was up 3.7%. They're just firing on all cylinders. That Dutch Bros. It's crushing it. Mm-hmm. Jack in the Box on the other end of the spectrum, down 7.1%. This was their worst performance Yeah, it's opposite of crushing it. Worst performance in 15 years. What
Wow.
intrigued me about Jack in the Box is they also mentioned they over-index not just on low-income consumers, but Hispanic consumers. And we have reported on this, where Black Box Intelligence has reported a significant pullback in, Hispanic heavy communities for various reasons. And I'm sure we could all probably derive some of those, but I think it's a tale of two brands again. I think we had a lot of those. If we were to pull threads, it's just a tale of who is winning and who is losing, and I think it's really increasingly bifurcated.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because it does feel like obviously there are some lessons, some sort of big 30,000 foot view lessons we can pull from all of this. But simultaneously, it also feels like a lot of sort of individual micro things going on here as well, because all of these brands are pulling all the different levers, if you want to use a cliche, and you can see that some of them are working and some of them are not. But it's really hard to paint with broad strokes what's going on here, other than to say the thing we've been saying for years, which is the customer is pinched and the economy is not great and the headwinds are strong. And so to succeed in this climate is just, it's tough. It's not enviable for what all the restaurants are going through. And that choppiness, it's so interesting because, uncertainty being the word of the year in the first quarter, and how quickly it felt in the second quarter. I felt like, oh, okay, it feels like we've got some more certainty. And now we've got choppiness and, what comes after the choppiness. And you can't make any big predictions about any of it because it's just changing so quickly all the time.
It is, and it's so different now. I think you and I both started covering this industry, kind of in the throes of the Great Recession, right? And at that point in time, the surefire winners in the industry were QSR and pizza.
Right.
And obviously the economy has ebbed and flowed significantly in the 15, 16 years since. But what has really changed since then? There's some recession indicators that are happening right now. We're not, declared in a recession. If we go into a recession, we can look at that 2008 to 2010 timeframe. QSR and pizza are no longer surefire winners.
Yeah.
And that's the head scratching piece of that. We can look at those macro trends and say, you know what? McDonald's going to be just fine because they over index on low income consumers, and QSR fast food is meant to be, cheaper. Pizza is a strong value. Always it feeds a family of four for X, right? That is just no longer the case. It really changed dramatically in 15 years. Now it's that holistic value, that value as it pertains to specific brand. You've got to get the service right. You've got to get the operations right. You've got to get the atmosphere right. BJ's is doing really, really well right now. And they put a lot of work in the atmosphere, and don't get started on Chili's. I mean, they were fixing wobbly tables.
Yeah.
That stuff works. So I just find that to be really, really fascinating is there's no surefire anymore. It's brand by brand.
Yeah, the CEO I was speaking with today is speaking inside one of the CEO's restaurants that has been recently redeveloped. And they've changed a lot about the ambience of the restaurants. And this funny thing happened where a customer walking out the door stopped, did not know this person was the CEO. We were standing there talking and commented on that restaurant is too loud. It's too loud. Cannot hear in conversation. And the CEO, to this person's credit, you'll notice I'm not using pronouns here. It jumped in and was asking questions and getting feedback, and eventually came around to this person, had a wonderful experience. But it was just the sound. It was just too loud. And we reflected on that after, and the CEO said that they would be looking into this because this is a test. They're tweaking it. But it's just, it makes me think though, Alicia, what you say is like, we have so many options of where to eat today. And so we are ever more judgmental of little details like how loud is it in the restaurant? And frankly, at the end of the day, I do wonder if it's just too much competition going on right now. And if you have X number of competitors, and the brand that we were at is one that is in a very busy category that's gotten busier and busier with a lot more competitors, it's those little details that are ultimately going to get customers to choose you over the competitor. So it sucks to, wrap up everything like that and say, well, it's just up to those little details. Got to figure it out. But at the end of the day, when you have this much competition and this, these headwinds, then sometimes I just think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, agree. And I think it's going to get even more challenging when we have a population reconciliation, and the boomers are getting old, and, the National Restaurant Association has sort of flash warning signals on this, that that demographics are going to be a persistent challenge in the industry because the industry is saturated. That industry saturation is already a problem because consumers don't have as much disposable income to go out to eat as much as they used to. It's going to be an even bigger problem when demographics start to decrease a little bit in the coming years. So details.
Well, this has been real cheerful, Alicia. Excited to be back in the.
I'm excited you're back from vacation. I did miss you. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I miss you. Now we can grumble about these things over Slack again and not have to record a podcast. Maybe our guest can make us more cheerful. Kicking it now over to an interview with our managing editor, Leigh Zinsmeister, and Jeremiah's Italian Ice CEO, Michael Keller. Alicia, as always, thank you.
I am here with Michael Keller today, the CEO of Jeremiah's Italian Ice. Michael, thank you for joining the podcast.
Glad to be here today. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk a bit about Jeremiah as a brand and about some of the new stuff that you guys are doing over there. So can you start by telling me a brief history of the brand's founding and how it got to be the regional favorite that it is today?
Be glad to. It's got a cool story. Actually, Jeremiah's Italian Ice is coming up on its 30th anniversary next year. So although we've only been franchising for 5 or 6 years, we're young as a franchisor. The brand was created by Jeremy Litwack 30 years ago. And he was working on ice flavors for years before that, leading up to it. So 30 years ago is when it all started in Central Florida, when he found his first location just off of I-4. And that's what kind of started it all. And it started in one small store. He has a lot of very funny stories about things that were going on in and around that location as he was trying to break into Florida and the ice cream / frozen dessert market. It's kind of a cool beginning. And every year from there, steadily building the guest experience, steadily building flavor offerings, having fun with unique flavors, adding stores. And all of that continued to a point where there were upwards of 22 company stores. I think that was our peak. We're at 19 right now. But now we also have over 150, and hopefully by the end of the year, over 160 franchise locations as well. So it's been a really nice, steady growth over this last 3 decades. But the first 2 decades, principally, were company-owned stores, inspired by him entirely and his taste buds and his sense for what great Italian ice should be. And given he spent a lot of time in Southern Jersey, spent a lot of time in Philly, and came across some people that were kind of in the business, he had a chance to really hone his craft and hone his product. And Jeremiah's Italian Ice is here and here to stay.
Awesome. So you start in Central Florida, and I know that Jeremiah's now has moved into some other states in the South, the Southeast. What is the secret to maintaining like your favorite status, like your status as people's favorite brand, and sustaining that across different places?
Yeah, there's really 2. And to your point about geography, so Jeremiah's, you could think of us as being pretty much from North Carolina down to Florida, and then Florida across to Arizona. And we skip a couple states in there, but we're in 11 states total. And it's a good question to ask, how do we maintain what we maintain while spreading out from originally Florida and Central Florida, our heritage market, out beyond Central Florida to all of Florida, and outside of Florida to all these other states. And I think there's 2 really fundamental building blocks to it. And our franchisees talk about this all the time. And we'll be talking about this week when we have our franchisee leadership together to talk about this. One is the product has to be awesome. There's no cutting corners. There's no shaving. There's no approximating. We have to make great Italian ice, and we have to make that great Italian ice fresh and daily in our stores, and layer it with great ice cream to make gelatis and the other products that we make. So I believe first and foremost, you have to have great product. and I used to work at Dairy Queen and Baskin Robbins and Jamba Juice. I feel very comfortable saying that if you want to succeed in the food industry, you better have a great product and a consistently great product. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing, no surprise, because this is brick and mortar, it's not packaged goods. You better deliver a great guest experience. And so I think what makes for Jeremiah's Italian Ice being strong in North Carolina or in Texas, let alone in our heritage market in Florida, we have to have a great guest experience. So it's everything that a guest would come to expect from visiting a frozen treat destination like Jeremiah's. And we just have to delight them in all of their senses every time they visit. If we don't get that right, they have choices, right? They could go other places for that really great mini retreat, that great sweet escape, that great celebration, whatever it might be. So I think to get them to come to Jeremiah's as often as possible, and also to be as consistent as we can be, even though we are now franchising, we're in 11 states, great product, great service.
Let's talk a bit about some of those products. So Jeremiah's recently launched what you're calling hop away treats, including gelati cakes, which are an ice cream cake. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So what inspired this move into what is essentially a new menu category, still within the frozen dessert space?
Correct. It is very much a new menu category. So that's a good way to look at it. And it was inspired in a few different ways. As I mentioned very briefly, I'm a veteran of both Dairy Queen and Baskin Robbins. I think 14 years at the two brands combined, maybe 15. And both brands had very robust ice cream cake businesses there. It's a decent sized market. It's a very competitive market. And so here we are as a frozen dessert retailer known for these great treats, especially our layered gelatis or our layered flavorites. That product is only available when you visit the store and purchase one. You know, maybe you're door dashing it, maybe you're driving through and getting it also, but still there's a visit to the store required. And we weren't in the ice cream cake business. So what it really means, and what I've talked to our franchisees about all the time, what it really means is that a Jeremiah's devoted customer, like a customer that just loves Jeremiah's Italian Ice and loves our gelatis and our favorites, if they or their family also love ice cream cakes, because there are ice cream cake families. I had an ice cream cake family growing up. Then they have to go to our competitors, right? One of our customers has to go to one of our competitors to get an ice cream cake. And that is kind of unacceptable. So we wanted to take our customers' passion for our product. And we talked about this, your last question, which is a very good one, this great product, and turn it into an ice cream cake. So we basically take like a large gelati, we call them bullfrogs now, or a large favorite, turn it sideways, make it inside of a really beautiful box. And we end up with this 6 or 7 layered, just wonderful creation that once frozen is exactly like a Dairy Queen or exactly like a Baskin Robbins or Carvel ice cream cake. Are there slight variations? Some brands use other ingredients, a cookie crunch in a Carvel cake, some real cake in a Baskin Robbins cake. Yeah, that stuff happens. But at the end of the day, when you freeze ice cream into cake form and you're serving it at your kid's birthday party, no matter what's in it, it's an ice cream cake, because your child or your significant other or somebody really wants an ice cream cake to celebrate a holiday. And we thought we had an amazing opportunity to do that, not only to keep our customers in Jeremiah's, but also there's so few Italian ice makers out there. There's really only one other. We believe ours is the best. And when that is beautifully layered with really high quality ice cream and frozen solid, it makes for an amazing visual and taste experience. We already knew the taste experience was good because that's what our customers have in stores. So we wanted to figure out a way that our customers could take it home with them, and thus hop away treats, things that you could buy at Jeremiah's and take home. We're a frog brand, Jeremiah's, right? Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Yeah. We're a frog brand. And so hop away treats are two or three things on our menu that are really easy to take home. And gelati cakes, which is what we call them, named after our gelati, which is our most popular selling product, are absolutely one of those things that we needed our customers to take home, but in cake form.
How are you convincing your customers to come to you now for ice cream cakes instead of going to wherever they may have gone last year on their birthday?
That's a very reasonable question. Our franchisees ask us that same question too. I would love to tell you it's because of our massive national advertising budget, but we don't have a massive national advertising budget. We're a 175, soon to be 185 store chain. I would say, major regional. So we don't have the same leverage that maybe some of the largest players in our industry, frozen dessert or QSR in general, have. So we got to be a little scrappier. So we have an incredibly robust rewards program. At least by the numbers I've seen, one of the stronger rewards programs. About 30% of our guests are in the rewards program. So these are our most loyal customers. So we let them know that we now have ice cream cakes that they can buy. We have also stepped with more than one toe now. We're probably maybe 1 foot in. Still a lot of the body left outside, but 1 foot into digital media. And so for us, we can't do national digital media. That would make no sense because we're only in 11 states. So we have digital media that is sort of geo-fenced and targeted around our stores so that it really helps our franchisees locally. And then we're doing a lot in store. Of course, our new frozen display case that shows the product is one thing, lots of POP. And then arguably my favorite thing, I think maybe the most important thing, is sampling. We are aggressively sampling Gelati Cakes in our stores. We had a birthday party in our stores to launch it a few weeks ago. And every weekend in July, we had a Slice and Delight, where we were putting together slices of our Gelati Cakes and putting them in these really attractive, clear plastic clamshells that we could hand out to our guests. They're a pretty hefty sample, slice the cake literally so that they could taste for themselves. And so that's the way we're doing it more than anything. So my hope would be, after we hand out hundreds of thousands of samples across all of our stores, we will hopefully convince our customers that we're the place they should go for their ice cream cakes.
Do you have a sense yet of whether you're convincing them? Or is it still too early to tell?
We really only launched on media and with POP and sampling 1 month ago. Based on anecdotal feedback from our guests, based on feedback from our franchisees, who are, of course, paying very close attention to this, feedback from our company stores, because we have 19 high-volume company stores. Seems like we're off to a really great start, but we have a long way to go. And part of what I've been sharing with our franchisees is, can't think of this as an LTO, can't think of this as a promotion, can't even think of this as a one-time menu expansion through our marketing calendar. It's going to be years, literally years, before we are stealing the market share we need to be stealing from our competition, and that we're in this for the long run. So as much as we want to see some great results right away, of course we do, this is a multi-year burn, and we'll have to do this interview again in about 3 years. Then we could talk about how it's gone.
That'll be great. I look forward to it. So earlier you mentioned how one of the things you try to do is delight your customer every time they come and visit, give them a good experience. What are some ways that you or the people in the stores do that besides just giving them frozen dessert? How do you make that customer happy?
Very fair question. It's tricky, right? It's always tricky. I think every restaurant company deals with this, and in QSR and frozen dessert absolutely do. And you have to reflect on the labor pool that's available. And, it's today's Gen Alpha, maybe Gen Z. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to have some millennials in management, but it's going to be Gen Alpha, Gen Z. Their skill set is very different than 10, 15, 20 years ago, especially their comfort with and their preparedness to have face-to-face interactions with guests. It's just not the easiest thing in the world. And as somebody, I heard this last year, put it very well. I really loved the way they said, for many kids, this is their first job, their first ever real job. They've never really, they've never been an employee. They've never received a paycheck. So it's a lot. And so we're working off of that foundation to get them rolling. And we do a few things. One is we try to create a very bright, colorful, welcoming atmosphere around our guests. So really just a fun place to visit all by itself. We have murals on our walls in every restaurant where the franchisee customizes an entire wall to the town or to the area where they are operating. So it really has a local flavor, and it's not a small mural. Sometimes it's as big as 8 feet tall and 20 feet long. I mean, it's enormous. So that's part of the visual experience. We also have what we believe is an amazing soundtrack. We have a select collection of over 400 songs and growing all the time of music that's been very carefully curated by our founder that captures kind of the energy feeling that he wants in the stores. And we've tried to be very consistent with that. So you got a store manager has to set the sound level right and then turn that loose. Okay. So those are some things that fortunately The employees in our store don't have to worry too much about. But then we wander into things they do have to worry about, right? The bathrooms have to be clean. The dining room has to be clean. So it has to be a well-run restaurant where key parts of that aspect of the guest experience are really dialed in. I read something very recently about Buc-ee's, of all things. Buc-ee's, not necessarily a direct competitor of ours, a convenience store chain tied to oil, tied to gas, mainly in Texas, but beyond Texas now. And I had no idea that the Buc-ee's brand originally started with basically a promise/guarantee that they would have the cleanest restrooms in the United States. They just was one of their claims to fame, and they took it super seriously. And you can imagine how that ripples into all aspects of your operations if you're taking restroom cleanliness that seriously. So we have to keep up the environment. It has to look great. So now, of course, it's time to zoom in and talk about the crew. So we call our crew Frog Squads because, again, Jeremiah's Italian Ice is a frog-based brand. So our crews in store are called Frog Squads. They get a lot of great training. A lot of that training is built on helping them deliver what we call a 5-star guest experience. I won't get into what all our 5 stars are, but many other QSRs and frozen dessert retailers have their own version, but we take it super seriously. In particular, the type of interaction that we would like to see our Frog Squad members have with our guests. Conversations about the menu, conversations about sampling, because we offer free samples, endless samples. We hope that somebody doesn't try every single thing in the dipping cabinet, but if they want to, they can, because that's part of what we do. Conversations about joining the rewards program. We really need and want those conversations to occur. And so a lot of our training is built around having the kinds of Frog Squad members who bring that kind of energy and are very comfortable with having that type of interaction with a guest. And so that in many ways then becomes sort of the cornerstone for a great guest experience at Jeremiah's. And when we get it right, oh boy, does it feel good, right? The guest feels great. Their family, friends, whoever's there to celebrate in a clean, bright environment with great music going on a warm summer night, all good. And if the guest experience is not there that way, we have an opportunity, right? We have a recruitment opportunity, a training opportunity, a guest experience delivery opportunity that, of course, we or our franchisees have to work on. So those components together, I think, get us where we need to be.
Makes sense. So as you mentioned, you've worked for a lot of great legacy brands in this space. What are some lessons that you've taken from those experiences that you can apply at Jeremiah's?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because it's an important one. One day, Jeremiah's will be as old as a Dairy Queen or a Baskin Robbins, and hopefully people will draw lessons from us. I think a few things come to mind, and it does kind of loop back to your very first question too. It all starts with product quality. I think a lot of legacy brands in our category of frozen desserts, or even not in the category, whether it's QSR snack like a Dunkin' Donuts or QSR food like a McDonald's, some of what makes great brands great is longitudinal success delivering high quality product. People remember great product from their childhood. They remember buying or experiencing great product for their kids. They might even, as grandparents, remember that far back and be bringing that experience to their kids or their kids' kids. I think in many ways it starts with great product, and that's very important. Something that's always controversial, especially in a franchise system, but I believe is very important as a former chief marketing officer and now as a CEO, is consistency. I think truly great brands in the restaurant industry are truly great because they deliver a consistent product and a consistent guest experience, which could be the physical facility all the way down to interaction with the crew from store to store, and from franchisee to franchisee, and from state to state. And you really get a sense from some of your best customers that they get it. And part of the reason they get it is no matter where they bump into the brand, it's still the great brand that they kind of love and trust, which is really important. And you kind of know you're there. When you have your guests, when you talk to your guests, let's say like in focus groups, as an example, and you start hearing things like, well, at my Jeremiah's, or my Jeremiah's has this, and you start to hear the guest almost personalizing what's going on, where they're starting to describe almost their personal relationship or their family's personal relationship with any given location. that's a pretty good marker that you've done a lot of good work over time, because somebody is that passionate and that loyal about your brand and business. So I think that part of the consistency is key. And I think another part of what is key to the consistency is the marketing. Operations goes without saying, and I don't just mean you got to have marketing. I mean, it's how you're presenting your brand and how you're communicating what your brand represents and how it's unique or how it's differentiated, and doing that steadily and consistently over time as well. A brand that changes its direction every year or every few years, they're probably still looking for their own true north, and it probably leaves their customers looking for a true north as well. So some degree of marketing consistency over time, I think, is really important to build a heritage brand.
So what else is in store for Jeremiah's? What's ahead?
What's ahead?
Besides becoming the next legacy brand.
Right. Absolutely. So fortunately, being the kind of brand and business we're at right now, there's a lot of stuff that's ahead of us. So first, let me talk about growth. We have a lot of franchisees that are growing right now. We are bringing new franchisees into the business with intention on growing. So we have already have a growth story, and what's coming is hopefully more growth, and not growth for growth's sake, but hopefully growth in the right markets with the right franchisees and the right locations to help this brand reach 250 units and one day 300 and maybe one day 500, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is absolutely in front of us. I also believe that as our growth continues in certain markets, it will give us the density that we need to be even more competitive than we are. When you're a small brand, small-ish brand, and you're growing, it takes a while in certain markets to build up enough critical mass where you can start behaving like some of the larger brands behave on a local level. You start to get access to marketing opportunities and to media opportunities that are not available to you when you have 5 or 7 stores in Orlando. But when you have 35 stores in Orlando, it's a different story. When you have 7 stores in Houston, it's very different from when you have 30 to 40 stores in Houston. And so you can start to take advantage of those opportunities, which we plan to do. Also, what's right in front of us, which is pretty exciting, I mentioned this at the beginning as well, 2026 is our 30th birthday, our 30th anniversary. So we've been making some pretty darn good, arguably the best Italian ice that can be purchased in the United States. And next year is our 30th anniversary of doing that. So we're going to be celebrating our 30th anniversary by celebrating some of the best flavors that brought us to the dance, so to speak. Some recent winners that have blown people's doors off. And then we have some cool surprises up our sleeves to delight our customers with 30th anniversary flavors as well. So those are some fun things coming. And since I mentioned this earlier and you asked me the question, I might as well build on it. We've only in this case, we've only stuck our toe in the water of Gelati Cakes as a part of Hopaway Treats. And, Mother's Day, followed by Valentine's Day, followed by Father's Day, followed by Easter. Those are some of the biggest cake holidays of the year, and absolutely some of the biggest ice cream cake holidays of the year. And Jeremiah's, because we're brand new to the ice cream cake business in July of 2025, we've never had a big Valentine's Day or Easter or Mother's Day or Father's Day or graduation month in June. So we're really looking forward to leaning into all the big cake holidays because we've never had the opportunity to do so before.
That's great. Final question. Okay. What is your go-to order at Jeremiah's?
I believe I have one. Absolutely have one. And it's
everybody does. Yeah. Everybody I ask has an answer to this question.
Everybody does. Brand. That's true. And I'm not going to give you like a BS CEO answer and like say it's our most popular or say it's like the most trendy or it's like the thing I want everybody to focus on our menu board. And it also kind of gives away my age a little bit. But what we do with our root beer ice and layering that with our vanilla ice cream. And remember, this is 10% butterfat vanilla ice cream. It is some of the smoothest, silkiest ice cream available out there. And Italian ice by definition is really smooth. Every crystal of water, so to speak, or ice has flavor built into it, makes it almost gelato-like. When you layer smooth Italian ice with smooth vanilla ice cream, and it happens to be root beer Italian ice, we're talking about a root beer float in layered form. And other than cheesesteak sandwiches, I'm not sure there are many foods or food groups better than a root beer float. So I'm a root beer guy. So when I go to our stores, the first thing I order is either root beer ice by itself, or sometimes it's root beer ice layered with vanilla ice cream. So I'm having a root beer float experience.
Good to know. I'll give that a shot next time.
Please do.
All right. Thank you for joining me today, Michael.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me with you.
Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered.